Your feet are in the sand and the ground won't stop moving. The shaking stops and the ocean is gone, pulled back so far the boats are lying in the mud. Someone behind you is already screaming and running. How did ancient humans with no writing ever survive something this fast? Behind that empty stretch of sand, a wall of water is already coming. It has a name, Tsunami. Nobody warns you because there is no one left to warn you. No radio, no siren, no stranger yelling from a truck. You have exactly the knowledge sitting in your own head and nothing else. And in the next few minutes, that knowledge decides whether you live. For most of human history, the honest answer is people mostly didn't. Whole camps vanished in an afternoon. They left behind nothing but sand where a village used to stand. Driftwood from someone's roof turned up a mile away. But some people did survive. Not through luck. Through something built so carefully it kept working centuries later, on a beach an ocean away from where it started. A tsunami is not really a wave. A wave crashes and pulls back in seconds. This is the entire ocean, lifted and pushed forward for minutes at a stretch. Out in deep water, it can travel as fast as a jet plane, something like 600 kilometers an hour. A ship sitting right on top of it would barely feel a bump. It only turns monstrous once it hits shallow water. The front slows down while the back keeps shoving, and the whole thing stacks up into a wall. And it never shows up alone. The first wave is often the smallest one. The third or fourth wave, arriving 20 minutes later, is frequently the killer. It arrives right when the first survivors climb back down to check the damage. They're digging through the wreckage of somebody's home, looking for anything worth saving. You cannot outrun this on foot, nobody can, not even a trained sprinter. Think of it less like a tide rolling in. Think of someone slowly tipping an entire bathtub towards you from the far end. Except the bathtub is an ocean, and the tipping takes 10 minutes, and it never stops. Which means the only version of survival that has ever worked is knowing it's coming before it arrives. Minutes before. Sometimes much longer, long enough to grab a child and reach higher ground on foot. So somewhere, somehow, ancient humans needed a signal. A tell. Something the ground or the sky or the animals gave away before the water ever moved an inch. Sometimes there was no signal, or worse, no one left alive to remember it. About 8,000 years ago, a huge chunk of seafloor off Norway broke loose. It was one of the largest landslides on the planet, and the wave crossed the entire North Sea in hours. On the far side sat Doggerland, a low stretch of forest and marsh where hunter-gatherers had lived for generations. Geologists have dug up the exact layer of sand that wave dumped across Scotland. Some of it came from a wave over 20 meters tall. Then the traces of those people just stop. Not slowly, all at once. No chant, no carving, no grandmother's warning passed down. I keep coming back to this part more than the wave itself. The people didn't just die, the memory of how it happened died with them. So, what does actually survive on the rare occasions a warning does? Not machines, bodies. Animals near a coastline have a strange habit of acting wrong hours before a wave arrives. Birds go quiet and lift off the beach all at once. Dogs refuse to walk toward the shore and drag their owners the other way. Elephants have snapped their own chains and headed for high ground for no reason anyone could see at the time. Even flamingos, birds that normally nest right at the waterline, have been seen abandoning their eggs and moving inland hours ahead of a wave. Nobody fully knows why. Maybe it's a sound too low for a human ear. Maybe it's something felt through the feet before it's ever actually heard. A stickman drawing of this practically makes itself. Every bird on a beach lifts off in one panicked cloud while the humans keep sunbathing underneath them. But animal behavior alone was never steady enough to build survival on. Nobody evacuates an entire coastline because one dog looked nervous. Unlike an elephant, a human being can talk itself out of a good instinct in about 4 seconds. Ancient humans needed something more reliable than a jumpy elephant. It turns out the ocean itself was willing to tell them if they knew exactly what to watch for. Here is the signal that actually worked, again and again on opposite sides of the planet. These were cultures that never met and never traded a single idea between them. Before the big wave arrives, the sea very often goes out first. Not a normal low tide. The water yanks back fast, exposing sand and reef that should never see daylight, sometimes for hundreds of meters. It looks like a gift. Free ground, free shellfish, free everything. All of it just sitting there in the open. It is the exact opposite of a gift. I've read about a few of these events now, and the thing that gets me every time isn't the wave. It's how calm the sea looks in the minutes right before. On a small island near Indonesia, a tsunami in 1907 killed a huge share of the people who lived there. The survivors never wrote a single word about it down. Instead, they turned the whole event into a poem, a chant parents sang to their children almost like a lullaby. The words compared the shaking ground to a cradle rocking. The deep rumble underneath it became a drum beat. Then came one simple order. If the sea pulls back, "Run for the hills, and do not stop to grab a single thing." That song got repeated for generations, changed nothing about daily life, and just sat there waiting. In 2004, one of the largest earthquakes ever recorded struck right next to that same island. The sea pulled back exactly the way the old song described. Out of tens of thousands of people living there, only a handful died. On the mainland nearby, in villages with no such song, the wave arrived and nobody was running yet. The death toll there climbed into the hundreds of thousands. Same wave, same warning window, same handful of minutes. One side had a lullaby standing between them and the water. The other side had nothing, and a nothing that size is very hard to picture until you put it next to a song that small. The most incredible version of this isn't a poem at all. It's a myth that turned out to be a working scientific instrument. Along the coast of what's now the Pacific Northwest, Native nations tell a story about a giant bird locked in battle with an enormous whale. It's a fight so violent it shakes the ground and drags the entire ocean up over the land, flooding everything for miles. For a long time, outsiders filed this under simple folklore. A nice story with no data in it. Then geologists studying that exact coastline found something odd. Whole stands of dead trees still stand upright in the mud. They drowned all at once when the land beneath them dropped several feet in a single night. Locals call these ghost forests. Bare gray trunks sticking up out of a salt marsh where a living forest used to be. Scientists counted the growth rings inside those trunks and found every single tree had stopped growing in the exact same year. Sediment layers pointed to a massive earthquake. Nobody could pin down the date until someone thought to check old records from the opposite side of the Pacific. In Japan, in the year 1700, villagers wrote down a tsunami that arrived with no local earthquake before it. No warning shake of any kind. An unsolved mystery for nearly 3 centuries. Line up the travel time of a wave crossing roughly 7,000 miles of open ocean, match it against the ghost forest and the old story. They all land on the same single night. I don't think I'll ever get used to this part. A myth carrying more precision than most of what actually got written down. The bird and the whale were never just a story. They were a record of the exact night the coast broke apart. Precise enough that scientists now trust it over a lot of written history. A culture with no writing had encoded an earthquake into an epic poem. It survived 300 years and then confirmed itself from 6,000 miles away. Stories are powerful. Some cultures went one step further and carved the warning into something that couldn't be sung out of tune or half forgotten. On hillsides above the coast of Japan, there are hundreds of stone markers. Some are centuries old and taller than a person, cut with a single blunt instruction. Do not build your home below this line. One of them stands above a tiny village. A plain slab taller than a person. It was placed there generations ago, after the water had already taken everyone once before. The families who rebuilt around it kept every single house above that stone, out of respect, out of habit, out of fear. Honestly, it hardly matters which reason won. In 2011, one of the most powerful earthquakes ever recorded sent a wave crashing into that same stretch of coast. Towns with concrete seawalls 20 feet high, trained engineers, and modern electronic sirens were wiped off the map within minutes. Walls of poured concrete crumbled like sandcastles under the weight of the water. The little village above the stone watched that same water climb the hillside. It stopped just short of the marker, exactly where it was always supposed to. Every single house survived without a scratch. One resident later said the whole village simply knew what to do. They had walked past that stone on the way to school their entire lives. What gets me isn't the survival story. It's that something this quiet and this old ended up outlasting all our modern engineering. It's not a monument, it's just a slab of rock with an order carved into it. On the one day that mattered, it outperformed poured concrete and a wired siren system. Modern technology lost that day. A rock with words scratched into it by people who never saw a phone, a satellite, or a single warning app won. So how did ancient humans survive something this rare, this fast, and this far beyond anything they could fight with a spear? Not with strength, not with tools, with memory, deliberately built to outlive the people who built it. A chant a mother repeats until her child can say it half asleep. A carving that turns a warning into a rule nobody in the village dares break, generation after generation. A myth about a bird and a whale that is really just a date, a place, and an instruction. It was dressed up so it could survive being told badly, forgotten for a while, and told again anyway. That's the actual technology here. not metal, not writing. Repetition, aimed deliberately at people who haven't been born yet, from ancestors who would never get to meet them or take any credit at all. Go back to that beach from the start of this video. The shaking has stopped, the sea has pulled back, and you're standing there with a child's hand gripped tight in yours. You don't understand the physics of any of it. You don't need to. Someone already taught you the pattern. Shaking, then silence, then a wrong, empty ocean means run. Your feet are moving before your brain has even finished being afraid. Somewhere behind you, still out of sight, the wave is building toward the shape it will have by the time it reaches you. Right now, on your phone, an app can do in one single second what once took an entire culture generations to build. A song, a carving, a myth about a bird and a whale that nobody outside the family believed for 300 years. It's easy to forget that alert on your screen is standing on the shoulders of people who had nothing but each other's voices. It worked anyway, long before anyone had a word for seismology. Thanks for watching. All the sources and studies used in this video can be found in the description below.